Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of MLS Monday over here on Scarves and Spikes. I'm Henry, and today we have very, very special guest, Todd Lewis from the Free Kick Pod. Todd, what's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, Henry. Super excited to be back with you and talk a little bit of what happened this past weekend in MLS. Talk about the Philadelphia Union and yeah, just get into, like I said, all things Philadelphia Union and MLS. And I'm doing great. Really excited to be back on the show. And I do got to say, it is a little bit unfortunate. I'll get it all out of the gate right away. It is a little bit unfortunate that Atlanta misses out on the playoffs because I do think that the MLS playoffs are a lot better with Atlanta in the playoffs. We all know what happened last year against Inter Miami, and ever since Atlanta's been in MLS, I feel like they've been one of those teams that's been a staple in the playoffs, and so it's a little bit unfortunate you guys aren't there this year. But yeah, still exciting times ahead for the 2025 MLS playoffs.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. The playoffs are much better with Atlanta United in them. But if there's any better example of what can happen when a team misses out on the playoffs, the potential for a bounce back, it's the Philadelphia Union, right? Uh, you kind of lead into that a little bit. The Union have officially clinched the 2025 MLS Supporters Shield with a 1-0 win over New York City FC. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But before we do, we have some breaking news that just dropped like a half hour before the show. According to Tom Bogert, midfielder Darlington Nagbe will be retiring at the end of the 2025 MLS season. Three-time MLS Cup winner with the Portland Timbers, with our very own Atlanta United, with the Columbus Crew now, Open Cup winner, Leagues Cup winner, and considered one of the best midfielders in MLS history. Uh, Todd, what do you think about kind of this news? It kind of sprung up on us, but what do you think about that and kind of the player that Darlington Nagbe has been over the past few seasons?
Yeah, it's interesting that I don't know how many people really saw this coming, but before I joined you on the show, I was in a couple group chats talking with people like, "Oh my God, did you see the news that Darlington Nagbe is officially retiring, according to Tom Burgert, at the end of the season?" And yeah, it's a lot of good things. I think you look at Portland, you look at Columbus, you look at Atlanta, everywhere that Darlington's went, he's been a winner. And you can take it back even further than MLS, even at Akron, playing in college. He was a winner in college, and so it's a sad day when you see a legend of the game like Darlington Nagbe that's been a great ambassador for MLS, I would say, just the last 10 plus years. You look at what Darlington's done with the United States men's national team, as Brian says, they're Mr. Consistency that he has been. And he's a player that I think a lot of teams would kill to have. He's a player that's not flashy. He's a player that goes about his business silently. He's a player that can pick apart any defense, any midfield in the league with his passing range. And uh, again, I don't think Brian could have said it any better. He is Mr. Consistency, and so we all knew the day was going to come eventually. But to see it come after the season that Columbus has had is a little bit disappointing. I'm sure Darlington, yes, Columbus are in the playoffs, and I'm sure he's going to want Columbus to go on this strong run. Hopefully, not against the Philadelphia Union, but maybe there's a little bit of, hey, look, the season hasn't gone the way that Columbus wants. Let's get the news out there that Darlington Nagbe is retiring. Let's give those players a little bit more extra motivations. Let's give the fans a little bit extra motivations, being loud for the best of three series, assuming that they can get themselves through the playing game. And I know the standings aren't set in MLS and everything, but yeah, I mean, what a way to rejuvenate the players, the fan base, and everything with a club legend like Darlington Nagbe hanging it up after the end of the season.
That's certainly an interesting point that you bring up, that this is a factor of motivation for a lot of these players. Uh, Nagbe is the captain of this Columbus squad, and obviously we just talked about the impact that he's had as a player. It's motivation, as you said, for these players to go out and put everything on the field in this MLS playoff series, right? This edition of the playoffs, to try to get him one last title, right? Like the best send off possible, right? For a player that, again, like you said, he's not Messi. He's not this big global superstar that came to MLS. He came from here, right? He was a homegrown product basically, and he's demonstrated to be consistently sneakily like one of those players that just sneakily makes a team really good. He's not your Joseph. He's not your Vela. He's not going to be scoring the goals, but he's going to do so much good for you, or he did so much good for you to get you there and to make your team solid. And obviously, here in Atlanta, we have a very very special place in our hearts for him. We still remember that 2018 season, 2019 when he was here, and I mean, we joke that we're still looking for the Nagbe replacement, but really, nobody can replace Darlington Nagbe. So that is going to be an interesting send off in the playoffs for Darlington Nagbe, and best of luck to the Columbus Crew as they go into this kind of send off series for him.
I have a question for you, real quick, Henry, and everybody else in the chat. I mean, obviously, I don't follow Atlanta United as close as I do Philadelphia Union, so I would be curious your thoughts and people in the chat and people that are listening back to this. I mean, I know Darlington hasn't spent as much time in Atlanta as he did in Portland and Columbus, but would you guys put him in your top 5 greatest Atlanta players?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I probably, I mean, let's go through my top 5 real quick. So obviously, number 1 has to be Joseph, no question about it. Number 2, it's a tie between Almada and Miggy. I'll say Almada. I'll say Almada and then Miggy. Shoot, I think number 4 has to be Darlington, just because of the impact that he has, and having him in the midfield, just what he would do. Because the magic about him is how much he could draw kind of pressure to himself, and then it relieves pressure off of everyone around him, and it creates opportunities for the team. And so that's something that's not easy to replace. And like I said, Atlanta hasn't really found someone that can do that. So yeah, I would probably put him in number 4. If not 4, then 5 if I'm forgetting someone, but definitely top 5.
It's a good exercise for Sydney, Tyler, and Tommy too when they listen back to this.
For sure. I'll be hearing from them probably in our Discord later this week if they watch this back and they give us the top 5. I will ask them for sure, and we'll get back to that next week. But yeah, what about midfielders in MLS history? Where do you have Darlington Nagbe?
Ooh, that's a good question. Man, he's got to be up there with some of the best, right? I look at a player like Alejandro Bedoya with the Philadelphia Union, where he had told us after the game on Saturday that he really wants to win MLS Cup, and then he can ride off into the sunset. And I don't think Bedoya gets the love that a lot of fans in MLS would give him, like people do in Philadelphia. But he has been a staple for Philadelphia. He has turned that team around. I think Bedoya has to be up there with maybe not top 5, not top 10, but definitely has to be up there with one of the best players to play in MLS. Right off the bat, a Char with Portland comes to mind. I mean, he had been a staple, and again, playing as that number 6, you don't get all the accolades, you don't get all the attention, but Char definitely has to be up there. And I think when it's all said and done, I think people will discuss Darlington Nagbe and comparing him up against the other greats in MLS in midfield. And I think a lot of people would probably put Darlington Nagbe in their top 7, top 10, maybe even some people would say top 5 because he's been that important to Portland, Atlanta, and Columbus. And like I had said, he had won everywhere that he's went. And so you bring in a serial winner into a locker room, a brand new team in Atlanta United knows what it takes to win. I mean, he was a big reason why Atlanta had the success they did so early on, entering in MLS. And so, yeah, the trophies alone, I think, have to put Darlington in the top 10.
Yeah, you go to 3 different MLS clubs and you leave trophies in your wake. That speaks for itself. So Darlington Nagbe about to finish a really, really good career. Yeah, and then who knows what's next for him? Who knows if coaching or maybe broadcast, something like that. But he's going to be a player to remember. So
Apple TV is going to want to pick him up just like
oh
they
yeah,
party.
100%. But we'll see what happens. Let's get into some playoff updates now because this weekend in MLS we had quite a few shakeups, especially in the West, the wild, wild West. Despite a 3-1 loss to St. Louis City, Austin FC got some help from Real Salt Lake and the Vancouver Whitecaps in their respective wins over Colorado Rapids and San Jose Earthquakes to clinch their spot. Those same results got Portland Timbers through as well, despite a 1-0 loss to Cascadia rivals Seattle Sounders. And it's now a 4-team scrap for the final two spots in the Western Conference between FC Dallas, Real Salt Lake, Colorado, and the San Jose Earthquakes. RSL and Dallas have a slight advantage because they have a game in hand, and they play this weekend against Seattle and the Galaxy. But it could ultimately all come down to decision day. So, Todd, of those four teams, Dallas, RSL, Colorado, and San Jose, who do you think make it into the playoffs, that play-in game?
Ooh, definitely not Colorado. I mean, they've been on a slide here the last couple weeks, and it's crazy too. They bring in Paxton Aronson, lot of hype around Paxton, and he's been all right in the games that he's played for the Rapids, but it's just went all downhill for them. They lose a big game to RSL over the weekend, which knocks them out of that playing game. So I think there's just a lot of negative energy around that Colorado squad. So I've got to eliminate them. Um, RSL, I mean, they've been so good the last couple years. A little bit surprised that they do find themselves fighting for a play-in game, but just because they've had the consistency the last few years, I've got to go with RSL for sure. And then I don't know, it's something about Bruce Arena. We saw what he did with New England when he was there, and I feel like it was just so many journeymen that he was collecting on that roster, and they were able to obviously win the Eastern Conference a few years ago. They were able to win the Supporter Shield. They are a really good team. We're a really good team under Bruce Arena, and he's been at LA Galaxy, DC United. He knows how to win in this league, and so if you had to tell me right now, I'm thinking, yeah, Real Salt Lake probably 8, and then 9 San Jose.
That's fair. I definitely see your Bruce Arena point. He's certainly on the Mount Rushmore of MLS coaches for his exploits. He's been here. It's crazy to think that he's been here since the league started 30 years ago. Um, but yeah, and he certainly has quite a lot of talent on that team. Joseph Martinez, Chicho Arango, they're having a fantastic season individually, and it's just weird to see them in the spot that they are right now. I just don't know. It feels like, considering that RSL and Dallas kind of have that
Extra
edge
game.
of
Yeah.
having an extra game, right? I just feel like if they get, I just think that puts them over a little bit. It's hard to get over like that kind of an advantage unless either Dallas or RSL just completely tank.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, having the extra game in hand definitely does help. I mean, Dallas going against LA Galaxy, who I don't know what to make of them. And it is interesting that you look, the two teams that were in the final last year, both teams eliminated from the playoffs, which is so odd. And that's why I love MLS, is just the parity you get from this league. Any given day, Bradley Cornell talks about it all the time in Philadelphia, where he believes that there is no bad teams in MLS. And I know Atlanta United fans may say, hey, wait, we're a pretty bad team this year. LA Galaxy may say, hey, look, we're a pretty bad team this year. And so many other teams that have been eliminated from the playoffs would say, we were pretty bad this season. But at any given day, anybody can win. Like, truthfully, I think that's what makes the playoffs exciting. And look no further than Atlanta last year in a best of 3 against Inter Miami. Every single year, we have pundits saying, oh, Inter Miami is going to win. Inter Miami is going to do this. What happens last year? A team gets hot in the playoffs and anything can happen. The Red Bulls got hot in the right moment, and they make it all the way to a final. So I yeah, I know Dallas has to go away to LA Galaxy, but the West has just been so inconsistent for me this year. I mean, to see the Eastern Conference already have it locked up, had it locked up, and now you're just flip flopping for spots and everything other than Philadelphia. But I don't know. I mean, going away to Galaxy and then ending your season against Vancouver, Vancouver still has something to play for. So yeah, a point, a draw would get Dallas into the playoff spot, but I don't know. I mean, I truthfully don't trust them. I know that they've been hot as of late, beating Austin with they didn't play Austin. They played Galaxy. Sorry, they beat Galaxy 2-1, drawing against Portland 2-2 a few weeks ago. So I mean, they've or I believe 4 games unbeaten, something like that. So yeah, they do have momentum going their way, but I don't know. I mean, Dallas has been so inconsistent this season, so I can't pick them to get in. I really can't.
That's fair. No, and I kind of want to go back to your point about uh, just kind of how MLS is a league of parity and how things can really change from one season to another. Uh, I think it for me, partially it's a case of I think just the overall quality is getting better year after year. Just think about this Eastern Conference, how close it is this season compared to other seasons, and just the power that you have on either side. I mean, you talk about Messi, Busquets, De Paul, Alba. This team of stars, and then you also have in that same conference Evander and Denke, who have created a really good partnership. The Union, who have just put together a squad of players that have surpassed expectations for the most part, I would say. Uh, and so maybe it's not that these teams are necessarily getting worse. Like I wouldn't say the Red Bulls are worse now than they were a year ago. I mean, you go get Choupo-Moting, who has 16 goals on the season, right? I can't say that that is worse than last season, but I just think the overall quality of the other teams around them has gotten that much better. And I think that's a credit to, yes, the parity of this league and of these organizations that have gone and made their teams much more competitive.
Yeah, it's true. That is true. I mean, I think if you ask Red Bull fans, they probably would have done with another striker. I do believe they have a DP spot open, and to leave that open all season long, I mean, uh, it's pretty annoying. I mean, we saw the same thing in Philadelphia, and it doesn't mean you need to fill up your roster with DP spots and everything, and you can go out. I mean, if it's good scouting and good player development, good coaching and everything, it goes a long way, just like we've seen in Philadelphia. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Red Bulls is a interesting case, and you have a player like Emil Forsberg who was fantastic last year when he joined MLS, and maybe didn't hit the same heights that he did last year coming into the league, but still a talented player. And yeah, I mean it's an interesting case when you look at Red Bulls. They were the longest serving team, I think, not to miss the playoffs, right? In MLS, I forget how long that streak went for, but
15 years.
yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And the Fire, who kind of beat them out of there, they hadn't made the playoffs since 2017. So that's two kind of big streaks that were ended, one positive, one negative. Um, let's get into that a little bit because the East, as you mentioned, it's pretty much been locked in as far as teams that are qualified versus not qualified since last Tuesday when the Fire beat Miami 5-3. Uh, Now the only thing that's really going on is seeding. So you have a four-way battle between Nashville, Orlando, Chicago, and Columbus to avoid the play-in game. And then you have other battles further up trying to get into that top four or maintain your position in that top four for home field advantage during the playoffs. Miami, Charlotte, NYCFC, Nashville, and even Orlando, who, although they're on 53 points, they have 2 games remaining and can theoretically make it. Uh, they're all kind of vying for a home playoff spot. So there's plenty of potential movement that could happen between this weekend, where a few teams are playing, and then decision day, where everyone is playing their final game. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how much this table shakes up and who can ultimately get that edge on the final day.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing that is interesting because um, a lot of teams aren't playing this week, and it is an international break and everything. So I'd be curious looking at okay, the teams that have to play this week, what players they've lost for international duty and everything, and see if that plays an effect into how they play going forward. I know Pedro Galese didn't get called up to Peru, and that's a big help for Orlando City as they play this weekend and have an extra game in hand. And I don't know. I do like Oscar Pereira a lot. I do like that Orlando City team. I mean, Luis Morial. You have Martin Ojeda, who's one of my favorite players in MLS, and um, the Union opened the season up against Orlando, where I think maybe the Union caught people by surprise going down to Orlando, beating them 4-1. Pasalic has been really good for Orlando as well. So I mean, they do have difference makers. They have players on that roster that knows what it is to win a trophy, as they won U.S. Open Cup a few years ago. They went on a decent run last year in the playoffs, and so I don't know. Talking to some people, one of my good friends, Jose Nunez, he mentions to me all the time that, yeah, if I'm the Philadelphia Union, I do not want to play Orlando City just because they know what it's like. That they make the game tough. They have good attacking players, and so if I'm looking at a team that could get hot, it is Orlando City, just because they've had that experience. Oscar Pereira, they have a good attack, and so Orlando City, I think, is one of those teams to keep an eye on and see how far they do play up. And um, it is interesting to see too, just what the final bracket's going to look like, because again, uh, Union fans that I've talked to, they're like, okay, if the Union get through the best of three, there's a world where you could potentially play into Miami in the next round, assuming they get through the best of three. I know it didn't happen
What
last,
a reward that would be,
but
right? Winning the Shield to face Inter Miami in round one.
yeah, it would be incredible. And yeah, I'm sure, the folks in Philadelphia wouldn't complain. Ticket sales would be through the roof. But man, what a reward, like you said, to win the Supporter Shield, to potentially play against Inter Miami in a one-round knockout game. And how many times have we seen Messi in his career just show up in those big moments?
Yeah, and I mean that's one side of it. You mentioned also this week, lots of players are gone for international break. They're with their uh, national teams in friendlies and qualifiers and such. Uh, and one that I'm keeping my eye on is LAFC, who in the Western Conference, they have secured their spot, but they're looking to potentially climb the table a little bit, get themselves in a better seed for the playoffs. Uh, if you look at the math, they could theoretically, because they have 3 games remaining, they could theoretically jump into the lead in the West, assuming some results go their way, obviously. Uh, but to do that, they would have to win both of their games this week, and they are hosting Toronto on Wednesday, and then they are going to Austin on Sunday. Sunday night soccer is Austin versus LAFC, but they are gonna have to do it without Son and Buonga, who have been absolute dynamite since Son joined the league in August. Buonga is now on, I believe, 11 goals, 8 assists ever since Son joined, which is absolutely wild. Son is, I think it's like 8 goals or 7 goals and 3 assists. Uh, Actually, 4, because he got his 4th last night against
Yeah.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Reminder right there. Um, but yeah, that powerful duo is not going to be there for these 2 games. And so, can LAFC, the rest of the squad, pull it together and get this LAFC side a chance to enjoy more home advantage during the playoffs?
Yeah, it's a good point, and I do kind of feel bad for the LAFC supporters that their final home game of the season is going to be missing key players. So, uh, yeah, I mean, what a way your last home game, a Wednesday night game, a makeup game, and you'll be without Son and Bawanga. But I don't know, 32-52 always show out and show up when it matters, and so I'm sure the crowd's going to be energetic, pushing the players on, whether it's your star players being there or not. The crowd's still going to show up, and so um, I don't know. I think LAFC is probably going to take care of business on Wednesday against Toronto.
I'd say that's a safe bet as well.
Although
You,
they did, get a draw in Chicago over the weekend. Who Chicago coming off of a big rejuvenating win down in Miami last Tuesday, 5-3, that secured their spot into the playoffs. And then you come home where they've struggled at Soldier Field this year, and in SeatGeek Arena, they're still playing at occasionally too. But Jack Elliott scoring a hat trick, 2 goals for Chicago, and then an own goal. I mean, what a day that Jack Elliott, former Philadelphia Union defender, had for the Fire.
yeah, that's it's always interesting when you have those types of games. Uh, But yeah, we have talked about the appetizer. We've talked about the lead up. Let's get to the main dish. The Philadelphia Union are 2025 Supporters Shield champions. They clinched again with that 1-0 win over NYCFC at Subaru Park on Saturday, thanks to Mikael Ura's deflected strike in the first half. It's the second major title in club history after winning the Shield back in 2020, but this time they got to celebrate with a full Subaru Park because last time That was COVID times. You didn't have everyone in there was limited capacity, and you actually had the real supporter shield in the stadium this time. I, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah, Captain America shield they had in 2020.
Oh yeah, that is a fun little bit of MLS lore. What happens when the actual trophy doesn't get in on time from LA? But yeah, that is a huge moment for the Union. Uh, Tell me about that. Were you there at Subaru Park on
Yeah.
Saturday?
Yeah, I was there, I was there. The celebrations were crazy in the locker room. It's interesting because Jovan Lukic, and I'm pretty sure we talked about Jovan the last time we was on the show, or I don't know. I feel like anytime I'm on shows, my show, I'm always talking about Jovan Lukic, and we started off talking about Darlington Nagbe, how crucial it is to have a solid number six, and Jovan's been that with Stanley John Jock for the Philadelphia Union. I say it all the time, and maybe partially a little bit biased because that's the position that I played when I was playing soccer. Was a number six. You know, you don't get the credit, you don't get the accolade. You take care of the back line. You're that last line of defense before it's the center backs and then your goalkeeper. And so number sixes never get enough credit in this league. Jose Martinez is another one of those players when he was with the Union. I'm like, this guy should have been in the best 11 at least once when he was in Philadelphia. But just the people that vote just never really look at number sixes in the league, and it's like, come on, we can't keep putting 20,000 attacking midfielders. It seems like in the in the team of the season, but yeah, wild scene seeing Jovan Lukic be the last player come into the locker room because, to his credit, he was the last player off the field, and fans were asking him to take pictures, sign jerseys, and Jovan thought twice about it. He was like, do I go into the locker room? He's like, no, I'll come take pictures. I'll sign stuff. And then he comes into the locker room and his eyes just lit up. He's like, what is this? Like the locker room's just covered in champagne, other beverages, and the music's blasting and everything. You see the bottle tops just flying all over the locker room and everything. And everyone's like, I missed all this, but he joined the party and acted like he was there the whole time. And yeah, you could see just all the joy with the coaching staff, with the players that they had on their face. Just I talked about it last night with Jose Nunez, and you would know this too, Henry. Just covering Atlanta United, working for MLS, it's like so many people show up for games, and then as soon as the game's over, you go home. But it really takes an army to help run a soccer club, to run a league, and so many of those guys don't get the credit behind the scenes. They go about their business quietly, and just seeing people in the front office that aren't Ernst Tanner and company, you know, just them having that moment meant a lot to me. Seeing, the trainers, the social media team, everybody's getting involved in these social media. I mean, in these celebrations because, you know, the social media people they're telling the story as the season goes on, and um, it really started with this club. I would say back in January when the Union hadn't done this, I forget, since 2012, 13, 14. Don't quote me on it. It had been a very long time since they had left the country and went away for preseason. They went to Costa Rica back in 12, 13, and 14. Again, don't quote me on it. They decided to go to Spain this year to Marbella, and the team, I mean, just really came together and bought into the message of what Bradley Cornell was preaching to those guys, saying, "Hey, look, it's a fresh start. I don't care what happened back in 2024. Yes, change is difficult. Moving on from Jim Curtin, a beloved figure in that organization and in this fan base. Jim Curtin, a coach from Philadelphia, Philadelphia through and through. And yeah, it's difficult watching Jim leave after 10 seasons. You bring in Bradley Cornell, whoever was going to replace Jim Curtin was going to have a tough task because of all the history that Jim had. But the best thing that Bradley Cornell could have done to silence all the outside noises, go out and just win. And that's exactly what he did. And so Bradley, to his credit, was open to all ideas, listening to his players. And he just came in and said, look, you're going to have a chance. No matter what you did last year, it's a fresh start for everybody. The Union suffered injuries to Olivier Bizo, Nathan Harrier. They're starting right back and their backup right back in preseason. Frankie Westfield steps in, was fantastic for Union 2 and MLS Next Pro last season, But we all know that there's a big jump up from next pro to MLS. And Frankie Westfield starts match day one against Orlando City, gets a debut assist. And we've seen Frankie balling out for the U20s at the US World Cup. He's been fantastic for this team. That's a young player that wasn't on the radar for a lot of people unless you covered Union 2 last year. And yeah, he's looked the part and then some. You saw the debuts to Eddie Davis, Salo Livas, Neil Pierre this year, David Vasquez, who's now on loan with San Diego, and Jim Curtin had played the youth, but I would say not to the extent that Bradley Cornell's done. I look at a player like Marcus Anderson, who, and I joke and I say it all the time, was cast off to the shadow realm last year after FC Cincinnati, where he gives the ball away, and now Cincinnati goes and scores and makes it 4-3, and the Union lose that game. And Jim Curtin banished him from the first team, spent the rest of the season with the second team, gets a chance this year under Bradley Cornell and scores the game-winning goal against Charlotte at home at Subaru Park. His first touch of the game in the 90th or 91st minute. I forget how late that goal was, but it's been moments like that, Henry, where the least expected players, they step up when called upon. And that's because of the belief, the trust that Bradley Cornell gives every single player on this roster. He says, you got to work hard in practice. No starting spots are guaranteed. You've got to earn your spot. I don't care what you did the previous week. You've got to show up to practice the very next day and earn that spot. And that's something that this team's really bought into. And even though the Union had lost to Nashville in the US Open Cup, what I thought was interesting was Bradley Cornell took every single player on the roster to Nashville because he wanted them to be a part of this. Even though they may not have been in the matchday squad, even though they weren't going to play, he wanted every single player on the roster to travel with the team down to Nashville to just experience what it's like playing in a semifinal, really just buying into that collective team attitude. And not saying Jim Curtin didn't bring that, because he certainly did during his time in Philadelphia, but I feel like Bradley Cornell's just really raised that bar this season with the Union.
You emphasize the buy-in, and I think that is very, very key. That Bradley Cornell got a lot of buy-in from these players, from the squad. It's not easy for a new coach to come into an organization, replace someone like Jim Curtin, who it's not just that he had this Union team as one of the most competitive teams over the past decade, right? It's that he was part of the city, right? Like you said, Philadelphia through and through. And now you're bringing in a new manager, and there's a lot of questions around that. And Philadelphia wasn't the only team that brought in a new manager. There were several others, Atlanta included, and some of those worked, some of them didn't, right? And so it's interesting to see kind of the different experiences of some of these coaches, the different kind of reactions maybe that some of the rosters, some of the teams have had to these new managers. But definitely, I mean, Bradley Cardinal is doing something very, very right. I don't know. I remember at some point just watching like I don't know if it was on MLS 360 or something, that they had uh, they showed something of Bradley Cornell like taking the team to like was it like kart racing or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I mean, I'm like that seems really, really cool. And that's a really good way to, I guess, team building, and to kind of uh, bring some harmony to the squad. It's something that you don't see very often, but it's an element of that for sure. And I think that definitely has its merit. And also something that will stick with me is one of the interviews that they did with, I think it was Bruno Damiani, during this, I think it was during this game against NYCFC, that I think Michele Cianone of MLS Season Pass was saying that Damiani said, you know, uh, Cornell has them running a lot. It's a lot of, physical, a lot of running, and kind of a culture of what we call in South America, sacrifice, of you're going to put everything out there, and you're going to give every ounce that you have. And that's not easy to do. Right. And, you know, you don't say like, oh, a player is not giving their all, but it means something different. For a player to really give everything, they have to really believe in what they're doing and what they're a part of. And Bradley Cornell has gotten that from this Union side, and the results speak for itself.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And Bradley Cornell has said it multiple times this season. I can remember Jim Curtin saying the same thing. It's like, yes, we want to be a pressing team. It starts with the pressure that the forwards put on, whether it's a Damiani, a Bribo, or Mikel Ua. All the strikers have played a factor into the season. And Mikael Orr probably hasn't started as much as he would have liked, only made his 15th start of the season, 28th appearance in MLS this season for the Union over the weekend, scores the game winning goal. But look, here's a guy who the previous week comes off the bench, replacing the injured Quinn Sullivan, tears his ACL, and gets 1 goal and 2 assists coming off the bench against DC United. And I know DC United is a laughing stock, if we're being honest, because of what they've been over the years. And it's interesting too. They move on from Ben Olsen, and the fan base is like, this has got stare. We need a new coach. But he brought stability, and DC's been anything but stable since Ben Olsen's left the club. And so, yeah, take it maybe with a grain of salt. It's DC United, but that's hard for any player coming off the bench, seeing a big player in Quinn Sullivan, who's had a fantastic year for the Union overall. In my opinion, he slowed down a bit in the second half compared to the first half of the season, where he plays so well. He gets caught up to the Gold Cup, but Quinn's had an unbelievable season overall when you look at it from just the stats and everything that he's done. And that's going to be tough for a player to replace Quinn Sullivan, who something's wrong when he's about to come onto the field. He exits, he runs on the side, they have him lined up, about to come in, and then he just collapses. And what does that do to you mentally? What does that do to you mentally? And you've still got a job to play. You still got a job to play. And to the Union's credit, they go down and score 6 goals. Mikael Orr, a big part of that. Like I said, 1 goal, 2 assists against DC United. Comes off the bench against Colorado Rapids, I believe back in July or August, and scores 2 goals against the Rapids as the Union go on and win. And this is a guy who doesn't complain to the media about his lack of playing time, his lack of starts. He goes about his business, and he's a team first guy. And he made sure to tell us in the locker room after the game, he doesn't care. He's going to do whatever it takes to support his teammates, to help get to the overall goal, which is MLS Cup. Check one, the Union get back into the playoffs. Check two, I think a lot of people in the media, nationally for sure, I think a lot of people locally too, would have told you, no way the Union winning the Supporters Shield in 2025. I mean, Bedoya even said with Apple TV after the game that he didn't believe that it was possible. He didn't think the Union were going to win the Supporters Shield this season, but long and behold, they do it. And again, that's a credit to Bradley Cornell, getting players that and just believe and fight for the badge. And any given match day, any given day, you could potentially have the opportunity. You show up in practice, you work hard, and you'll get rewarded for it.
And I think what makes that win even more impressive is that the Union didn't go out this past offseason and bring in any big star power. You didn't get any Messis or your Sons or your Muellers or whatever. You didn't even make any big, splashy, expensive signings, right? There was, I think the transfer record was broken like 3 times this season. uh, that Philly was not about that. Your most expensive signing I have right now is Bruno Damiani for just over $3 million. That
Yeah,
is that's pretty basic for a lot of clubs in the league. That's not anything huge. And so the fact that the Union was able to make this big accomplishment in a league with just so much quality, right? I think that speaks volumes, and that for me it makes it even more interesting that they were able to do it that way.
yeah, and I know I'm on a Atlanta United podcast, and I use this example quite often when Jose Nunez joins me over at the Free Kick, and we say, I mean, look no further than Atlanta United. How much money that you guys had spent, Atlanta had spent on Emmanuel Latte-Lot, you bringing back Miguel Almiron, and time again, ever since Ernst Tanner has been the sporting director for the Philadelphia Union halfway through the 2018 season and got a full season back in 2019. They don't spend a ton of money. Ernst Tanner goes out and signs players nobody's ever heard of. Kai Wagner from the third division in Germany back in 2019. You have an injury-prone Kasper Schmeichel who's big for the club in 2019, and they wind up getting $1 million in GAM from Chicago Fire, and then look what he does with Chicago. Nothing. Eventually leaves MLS. Jacob Glesnes, who's been Defender of the Year back in 2022, 3-time MLS All-Star. Jose Martinez, who not many people knew who he was in Venezuela, wasn't getting a sniff at the national team, comes to MLS with the Philadelphia Union, wasn't even supposed to be the guy. They signed Matai Orvac from Slovenia, one of those countries. He's supposed to be the starting midfielder, But because Jose Martinez impresses in preseason, he beats out the guy that was supposed to be the guy in Philadelphia, and Jose Martinez becomes the guy. You look at Jovan Lukic. Who knew who he was? I mean, there's just so many examples on this roster where that's Ernst Tanner. He goes out and gets players that nobody's heard of, and I think we're starting to see more and more of that in MLS. And yes, it is exciting seeing a club legend like Miguel Almiron returning back to the club. But this league is getting younger and younger, Henry, and not every team is going to go out there. I know Suns maybe the exception. Not every team is going to go out and sign a Son, sign a Giroud, sign a Messi. We're seeing this league get younger and younger. I mean, look at Zenko Nagel with Chicago Fire. How many people realistically can tell you in MLS they knew who he was? I can guarantee you if you interview, let's say 100 fans, I can guarantee you 90% of those fans are going to say they had no clue who he was. And he comes into Chicago this season and has a fantastic season. And so I love seeing young players join this league. I think young players are excited about MLS. And you mentioned Bruno Damiani there. When Bruno had joined Philadelphia Union, his agent was talking about the deal that went down between Nacional and Philadelphia. And the one thing that excited his agent is the money's guaranteed in MLS. It's not always guaranteed worldwide. You get money late. A lot of just sketchy things going on, and the Union haven't been paid in full yet from Corinthians in Brazil for Jose Martinez, and player payments for their salary had been late. But that doesn't happen in MLS. You come to MLS, you come to America, you know your salaries are going to be guaranteed. You know you're going to get that money, and so Bruno Damiani talked about, yeah, that was one thing that excited him coming to Philadelphia. It was his first time leaving Uruguay. And yes, he hasn't set the world on fire, but he does so much things right. The little movements off the ball, the physical play that he brings. And he reminds me a little bit of Julian Kranza, where Kranza was drawing a lot of fouls. He was fouling a lot of people. You had mentioned it. It starts with the sacrifice, the hard work, the pressing, making it very difficult for those center backs. And Damiani, just like you are, there's no player on this roster that I have heard talk to us in the media and say, I'm not happy with my game time. I'm not happy with the way that we're playing. No player says that. Everybody is balled in fully with how Bradley Cornell had set out and the belief that he wanted his team to play with this season.
If you're not happy with your game time, go and play better, right?
Yeah.
Raise the bar. I think that's a very healthy culture, and I mean that's something that Philly has had for a while, and this is what you get when you have a good culture, a really good organization that knows what they have to go and do to build a competitive team. So that is a full credit to that organization. I want to just really quickly comment from Jose Nunez. How does the fan base feel about the Emmanuel coffee? Uh, it's certainly split. I will say that, because I think it started off really well, right? I mean, he came in with a bang. I think he had quickly got like 6 goals in I think as many appearances it was, and then it kind of trailed off from there. I think it became evident that there were deeper problems in this roster than just, oh, Emmanuel Atelait isn't worth $22 million, which, to be fair, probably wasn't, if we're being honest. Uh, but yeah, I think we'll see what happens after this season. But for that investment, you would have probably expected him to be at least in Golden Boot contention, and you have to say that the season has been a disappointment for him. But we'll see. Again, he was in the championship. He was playing soccer nonstop for over a year now, because their season starts in August, and he came in the middle of their season. Barely had any preseason with Atlanta United, and then just got right into playing again as a starter. So that can be rough on a player. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, absolutely not. But that could be a factor. I guess we're going to see now that he'll have a second full season in 2026. All right. So with Philadelphia, I wanted to bring this up as well. Now that I have you here, it's not very common for Supporters Shield winners to go and win MLS Cup in the same season. It's only happened I mean, most recently it was LAFC in 2022. I know it stings for y'all. I'm sorry. I have to bring that up. But it's also only happened 4 times in the last 20 years. The playoff format is prone to causing some upsets, as Atlanta fans are well aware from last season, and it's not the only example. What does Philadelphia have to do to make it through the MLS Cup playoffs and lift MLS Cup in December?
Yeah, I mean, Jose and I have been talking about it the last couple months. I feel like maybe the last month, where the chance creation really hasn't been there for Philadelphia. I mean, it's not that hard to see when you're watching the games, and their chance creation is definitely going to take a big dip down when Quinn Sullivan's going to miss the rest of the season and a significant portion of next season as well with that torn ACL. And so, who steps up in that role to create? It's usually been Indiana Vasilev and Quinn Sullivan starting as the two dual tens, and Indy doesn't create as much as I think fans would want, that I would personally want too. I mean, I've called it out multiple times, but he presses, and that's what Bradley Cornell values number one. You go out and you sign Milan Iloski from Nordsjælland in Denmark after San Diego can't get a deal done to make his loan permanent. And he's looked the part in Philadelphia, whether it be as a striker or as a number 10. I think personally he fits his formation better as a 10, and you're going to get chance creation from Milan Iloski. But yeah, I mean, you're certainly going to miss Quinn Sullivan, but the Union have kept clean sheets in their 5 in the last 6 games. And if the Union can keep playing that solid, stout defense, 14 clean sheets on the year, which leads MLS, they have the league's fewest goals conceded at 33. If they can keep that up, where that's super impressive, Henry, right? Where the Union have only let up 33 goals in 33 games. That's a goal a game. They gave up 7 a few weeks ago against Vancouver. If they don't give up 7, that number looks even better.
Yeah,
And we're talking
that
about
is
a
wild.
historic defense. Let's be honest. We're talking about a historic defense. Jacob Glesnes hadn't looked like the defender of the year the last 2 years after pulling his hernia in 2023, get surgery, and then still not the same last season. Comes in and it's like, my goodness, look at Jacob Glesnes. He makes the All-Star team. He's been one of the Union's best defenders this season. Alawatu Makanya, what did you know you had in him? Makes a big mistake in a final last year for Union 2 against North Texas, but because of injuries defensively, he gets given an opportunity in preseason, and he hasn't looked back since given that opportunity. And when it's all said and done, he'll be a top 5 player in MLS's U22 under 22, I would imagine. He's been that good for the Union. Now just waiting for him to get called up to the South African national team. Hasn't happened yet. Still scratching my head why that hasn't happened, because he's been that good for Philadelphia. And if he puts it together another season like he had this year, he'll be in Europe before we know it. And that's okay. And I don't know how Atlanta fans feel. And I would imagine maybe it's similar to Philadelphia, where you look at your star players going, Thiago Armada getting sold a few years ago, but that's what MLS is. That's what most leagues are around the world, is a selling league. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you have good scouting, if you have good sporting directors at your club, technical directors at your club, then you should be able to replace those players. And I know it's hard to replace a player like a Thiago Armada, or we had mentioned at the beginning of the show, a Darlington Nagbe. There's only one Darlington Nagbe, but you can go out there and find players that are similar, similar characteristics, similar playing styles to the players that you're moving on from. And I think that's been so key for the Union's success, is that they have the players that obviously play the style that Bradley Cornell wants to play, but they have a front office that knows what they're doing, knows the type of players that are going to fit into what Bradley Cornell, what Ernst Tanner is wanting to build in Philadelphia. And so for me, it's a long-winded answer of saying just continue to play good defense. Chances are going to be pretty limited. You might get a chance or two in the playoffs. To see games being blown out 5-6-0, it's not going to happen. You continue to play good defense. You get a save or two from Andre Blake. You guys certainly got it last year with Brad Guzan against Atlanta United, against Inter Miami. You need good goalkeeping. You need good defense. Union have both. Like I said, lead the league in clean sheets with 14. Andre Blake just picks up clean sheet number 9. he looks pretty healthy for the time being. I mean, I know it's late in the season, and what team really is healthy? Teams are dealing with little injuries here and there. But as long as Union can continue to play good defense, get a save or two from Andre Blake, then why not? They've been great at Subaru Park this season, 12 wins, the most points at home, or tied for the most points at home this season in MLS with 40. So yeah, I mean, you go out there and you take care of business at home. You get good defense. The fans are going to support you, and anything's possible.
And you're playing at home the whole way through, except for that one game in round one, but
Yeah.
the whole way through. So you have definitely that advantage. They say defense is the best offense. And for the Union, I'd say that's certainly true given their style of being lethal in transition. So that is definitely a point in favor of the Union, I would say. Uh, as we wrap up tonight, let's get some quick hits on other stuff that has happened in the past week. Nashville SC wins the 2025 Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup with a 2-1 win over Austin FC in the final, held up by Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge goals. Nashville FC, by the way, another team that went into the season with a new manager in BJ Callahan, and I mean, it has to be as simple, right, as you know, he figured out the best way to get the best out of Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge. Because Sam Surridge, when he came into the league, he wasn't the world beater that he is this season. He wasn't the 20-plus goal scorer that he is this season. And Hani Mukhtar, he kind of trailed off from his MVP pace back in 2022. Well, he's back, and he's doing great things for Nashville. They have made the playoffs, and yeah, they're currently trying to avoid the play-in game in a very, very stacked Eastern Conference, but they will have MLS Cup playoff action. We also have the LA Galaxy falling 3-2 to Toluca in the Campeones Cup final. They had to lead twice in that game, thanks to Diego Fagundes and Gabriel Peck. They lose in the dying seconds of the game after a Federico Pereira game winner. A season to forget for the Galaxy, but they will, or I should say, they have qualified for CONCACAF Champions Cup to their third place finish in Leagues Cup. A wild kind of drop from the Galaxy. Winning MLS Cup and then being rock bottom this season, but potentially with getting Ricky Puig back, plus an off season of Will Kuntz cooking, potentially equals Galaxy bouncing back in 2026. We'll see. And final kind of big news item is San Diego breaking the record for points in an expansion season. With a 4-2 win over Houston Dynamo, San Diego reached 60 points in its debut season, breaking LAFC's record of 57 in 2018. The Shield dream is over, but is this a team that can compete in the playoffs? They have certainly played a very good brand of soccer over in the Western Conference. Mikey Varas has done a very good job with this team, held up by MVP candidate Anders Dreyer, who is having a phenomenal season, and then Chucky Lozano as well, who's kind of brought in to be the main star, but in a sense, he's kind of taken a second place to what Anders Dreyer is doing. So very good year for San Diego. But my question is this a foundation for sustainable success for multiple seasons? Or are we going to see a repeat of St. Louis, who comes into the league, 2023, wins the West, and then doesn't make the playoffs for 2 seasons? I personally don't think that it's going to be that case of San Diego. I think they have a better foundation, but it's a legitimate question, right?
It is. Man, it's a good question. I mean, most recent history would tell you, like you said, look at St. Louis City and look what happens there. Is this sustainable? I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah. I mean, I don't know how far they're going in the playoffs. We had talked about LAFC. I mean, the tandem of Sun and Buanga is tough for any team to break down and get over. And so I do wonder what it would look like. LAFC, they know what it's like to play in these playoff games. They know what it's like to make a final. So, I mean, if San Diego does wind up playing against a LAFC, do they have enough? Do they have the experience to get past LAFC? I mean, a team for me, I think that just not enough people talk about, honestly, is Seattle. I know they sit in 5th place, but Brian Smetzer, he knows how to win finals. He knows how to navigate MLS Cup playoffs, and I I wouldn't sleep on that Seattle team. Somebody had asked me a couple weeks ago, I believe it was, what team in the West do I think is going to make the MLS Cup, and I said Seattle, just because of the experience Brian Smeltzer has, and that's a team that's set up for tournament style play. So yes, it's fun to watch what Bouanga and Son are doing. Yes, it's fun to see what Mikey Varas has San Diego doing, but I think people are honestly sleeping on Seattle Sounders. I really do.
For sure. They've won it all, and they can definitely do it again. Uh, that is going to bring us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, tell your friends, family, coworkers, any soccer fans out there to watch Scarves and Spikes, to join us. We have shows all the time, MLS Monday, every single Monday, and then our main show every Wednesday. After this show, we're actually going to do our reaction show to last night's loss to LAFC, so be sure to stick around for that. Be sure to check out our website, scarvesandspikes.com, for news, opinion, analysis, and everything you need to know about Atlanta United. Check out our shop where you can get t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and more. And you can also support the show by joining our Patreon. Starting at $1.17 a month, you can get access to exclusive content, including interview audio, mailbag episodes, our unfiltered series, and more. That also gets you into our Discord, where we discuss Atlanta United, soccer outside of MLS, and much, much more. We have a large community of soccer fans, and we would love to have you join us. And that's going to do it for this episode. Todd, thank you so much for hopping on. It's been an awesome chat with you, and hopefully we can have you on soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Henry, and the rest of the guys over at Scarves and Spikes for having me on. And like I said at the beginning of the show, hopefully, this is just a one-off season for Atlanta United. Hopefully, you guys can turn around next season with Ronnie Dyler, because I do honestly mean that the playoffs are much better with Atlanta United in them than without. So thanks again, guys, for having me on, and hopefully you guys enjoy the MLS playoffs this season, even though you guys aren't participating.
Absolutely. Still plenty of good soccer to watch. So, yeah, again, guys, I will see you in a little bit for our reaction show. Don't go anywhere. See you guys next time. Bye. Talking during the credits and say things, but yeah, this was a fun episode. Good luck to the Union throughout the playoffs, man.
Yeah, hopefully, you get good content, good interviews, with players and everything, and hopefully, yeah, I mean, it sucks watching them lose out on the win differential in 2022, where they could have potentially have hosted MLS Cup, but look, the Union got the wins that they needed to win, and now let's see what they can do. I mean, I hate this format, if I'm being honest, the best of three. I'd rather it be single elimination, but um, yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I mean, Miami honestly scares me, watching what Messi does in big moments and everything. The Union have played good against Miami, but yet still, I don't know. Anytime you look at Miami, they they scare me, right? They do scare me. Union have yet to get a win since Messi's been with them. So
as long as you can hold
playoffs
defensively, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're really bad defensively, Miami. So the Union do have that going, but again, it's like I've watched this team the last month struggle to create chances, and what's that going to look like come playoff time? I don't know. I really don't.
Well, the good news is they don't have Gareth Bale, so
yeah.
Sorry, I had to leave you off with that. All right.
There is a sun. There is a sun.
There is a sun. But if you meet him, it will have to be in a rematch of MLS Cup.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there, guys. See ya.